Welcome to the Observers Direct, the show where we go meet our observers in person. In this edition, we travel to Casablanca, Morocco to meet with our observer Touria. Now, she tells us her city is literally crumbling. In the past couple years, buildings have been collapsing at an alarming rate. Dozens of people have died, hundreds have lost their homes, and thousands more are still at risk. Now, she wants the authorities to do something about this and help those who have been left homeless.
Hi, Touria.
Hi, Gaelle.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome to Morocco.
Thank you. So tell us why you invited us here.
Well, we wanted to show you firsthand the damage caused by the repeated building collapses in this city. In the last few years, several neighbourhoods have witnessed building collapses, which, unfortunately, have in some cases proved fatal.
Touria introduces us to Abdelali Nin, who lost both his sister and his niece in what Casablancans now call the Bourgone neighborhood disaster. On the night of July 11th, 3 buildings crumbled all at once. It took several days to clear the rubble and count the dead. 23 people were killed in all, making it the city's deadliest collapse yet. That's the day they found your sister and your niece?
Yes, I think they found my sister at 5 a.m. and Amal at 7. Amal as in Amal Maroufi.
Your niece who was an actress?
Yes. And my sister was Finin Fatima.
And they lived together in the apartment?
Yes, it's just unbelievable. You know, Amal was like a flower. A red flower to us. A flower which... We can't forget Amal. Amal.
Amel, who was 23 years old, had already acted in several movies. This rising star's tragic fate was widely relayed in the Moroccan press and brought a lot of attention to this disaster. According to a preliminary investigation, the buildings collapsed after a beam was destroyed. One of the apartment's owners was having construction work done without authorization. But according to urban architect Najib Dahak, this is not the only reason why 3 buildings fell like dominoes.
Firstly, these buildings were constructed superficially, without proper foundations. Secondly, 2 different construction techniques were used. On the ground floor, there is a rubble stone wall, while upstairs we can find reinforced concrete. And these 2 structures are not connected. Thirdly, several more stories were added at different times. Therefore, the building's significant weight can in no way be supported by the structure, which is undersized to start with.
There are many buildings like this, right?
In truth, and this is vital to understand, this is far from being an isolated case. Whole neighborhoods have this problem, and not only in Casablanca, but in other cities around Morocco. There has never been a real renovation drive. So with time, and because of erosion, etc., and especially when additional stories are added against building regulations, homes simply begin to crumble. I'm worried that in years to come, if nothing is done, this will happen more and more in our cities.
Our observer then introduces us to a woman who lives right behind the disaster site. Khadija works in Belgium, but had come home to spend a few months with her family when the tragedy occurred.
It happened here.
Here?
Yes, here in the kitchen. It was around 2:30 a.m. We heard a rumbling as though it was going to rain.
Were you afraid your building was going to collapse?
Yes, we were very scared. And the problem is that they told us the other side is stable, but that we shouldn't come here in the kitchen. But we have no further information, and we don't know what they're going to do or when they're going to do it.
Khadija takes us upstairs. From there, her family can overlook the wreckage left by the building's collapse.
Since the collapse, we've taken it in turns to sleep. Half of us sleep while the other half stays awake. We have a large living room up here, so 2 or 3 people sleep there, so we can watch out for signs of trouble. We're really frightened.
The women who have come for tea lived in buildings adjacent to those that collapsed. They were forced to evacuate since their homes were also at risk. Today, they live in a shelter run by the local authorities, but they prefer to speak to us here, far from prying eyes.
They're not helping us. They tell us they'll let us have a house for 100,000 dirhams, but we don't have the money. Before, rent was very low, and people still had trouble paying it, so how on earth can we be expected to pay sums like this? What's more, the banks would never agree to loan money to people like us.
These women certainly have reasons to worry. The apartments they're being offered are in part funded by the state, but the cost remains too high for many of them. If they aren't able to gather enough money, they could stay stuck in a shelter, like these families who had to leave their homes after a string of collapses in 2012. They've been living in this empty schoolhouse ever since.
The authorities brought us here. They told us we would stay for 10 days or a month while our own homes were made ready. But we have been here for 2 years and 2 months and still nothing. They should never have made us leave our homes. They should have left us where we were. It doesn't matter if they fall in on us. It would be better than living here in this school. It should be forbidden to do something like this. It's shameful. I can't speak anymore.
Some of those who lost their homes couldn't stand living in such cramped quarters. Instead, they moved to the slums. Just next door to the Grand Hassan II Mosque, dozens of people live in these rundown shacks. This single mom who's awaiting her second child is unemployed, and so is her mother.
We are tired. When it rains, we have to put out buckets to catch the drops that fall from the ceiling. In summer, the heat is suffocating from early in the morning. This is no way to live. We are overrun by mice. I'm worried that in a few weeks, when I give birth, as soon as my back is turned, a rat will bite my baby's hand, and he won't be able to defend himself.
These women used to live in the Old Medina, which is the historic heart of Casablanca. Today, it's where the most homes are crumbling. Nobody has been able to keep count of how many buildings have collapsed these past few years, either partially or completely. Usually, residents are able to get out in time, but not always.
So here we are in front of a building which crumbled in May 2012. One person died on the spot, 2 others died later, and there were many casualties. The ruins stayed like this. It poses a threat for the surrounding area. It's dangerous for passers-by. There are other houses which have been affected, like the house opposite.
All over the Old Medina, you can see sagging buildings, cracks in the walls, and poorly constructed extra floors, often built without permits. These structures are run down because neither their owners nor their tenants have enough money to pay for their upkeep. Along our way, dozens of people ask us to come see the troubling states their homes are in.
Two years ago, they were put on a waiting list for a new home, but they've had no response.
We went to see the person in charge. They told us things are about to change and to wait to speak to the new mayor.
They did ask for authorization to repair the floor, but they were refused. So they asked them just to keep these wooden planks to walk on.
We run into a protest. A building partially collapsed just a day earlier, and its now homeless occupants demand help finding new housing. They too are unable to pay the contribution the authorities are asking for. Local residents were briefly hopeful that their situation would improve when the city launched a restoration project in the Old Medina a few years back. However, buildings that risk collapsing were only counted. Apart from fixing underground sewage systems, most of the work, which ended last year, seemed to focus on aesthetics. A brand new wall was built, and along a tourist circuit, some houses got a fresh coat of paint. Our observer believes all this was done mainly to hide the poor state the Medina's in.
As part of this scheme, the streets were meant to be repaved. But just 1 year after the works were completed, we can see how badly it was done, just like other things. This means that water will leak in, and the right foundation materials weren't used, so it's quickly going to deteriorate. So the aim of the scheme, which was to reinforce the Medina's infrastructure, hasn't been achieved.
To try to understand what the authorities plan to do to stop new collapses, we paid a visit to the city's prefecture.
If each house in the Bourgone neighborhood is assessed, we could be in for some nasty surprises. But whatever happens, we're going to have to do these assessments to avoid a repetition of cases like the Bourgone tragedy.
We talked to a lot of people who had to leave their homes because they risked collapsing. Many of them said they couldn't afford the sum needed for a new apartment.
Certainly. We know full well that people don't have the means. But there has never been a question of giving homes for free. The state is already subsidizing the real cost of the apartments. And today, when a home is in danger of crumbling, we're simply asking them for 100,000 dirhams for apartments which are worth 400,000 dirhams. So you can see the effort being made. I don't think it is possible to make any more of an effort than that. It's as simple as that.
Both local and national authorities promise to do what they can to stop more buildings from collapsing. However, with 9,000 structures at risk in Casablanca alone and nearly 44,000 in all Morocco, they're going to have to race against time. Our Observer Touria is impatiently waiting to see concrete action so that she can stop counting the dead, the injured, and the homeless.
Of course, we're going to be staying in touch with Touria to see if the authorities manage to prevent more collapses. Now, if there's a problem in your community that you think the world needs to know about, get in touch, and maybe we'll come see you for the next episode of Observers Direct.